Have a great show, everyone.
Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Lang. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Lang.
Welcome to Finding Certainty. If you're with us for the first time, we appreciate you stopping by. For those of you who are listening to us every week, week in, week out, we have a lot of loyal listeners. Very pleased to introduce my guest today, Dr. Tracy Gapin. Dr. Gapin is a board-certified urologist. He's a world-renowned men's health and performance expert, the founder of the Gapin Institute, and a best-selling author. He's written 2 books, Mel 2.0 and Codes of Longevity. You may even have more books now, Dr. Gapin. We'll get into that. I know you're always writing and always working. So thanks for being here today. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to spend some time with us.
You got it. Thanks so much. Glad to be here with you.
Well, it's our pleasure. You know, here on Finding Certainty, we're always looking for ways to help create and discover and kind of peel back the layers of certainty in our lives. And that's most definitely what you do from a health standpoint. I always start the show out sharing 2 reasons why I've invited this specific guest on my show. And first and foremost, just like I alluded to, Dr. Gapin helps his clients to do exactly that in their health and performance. And it's more than just health. You do a lot as far as helping your clients achieve their highest potential in several different areas, because there's ripple effects, right, in everything we do. The second reason, though, I wanted to invite Dr. Gapin on our show is that he does a phenomenal job of promoting what he does, and not just his own business, but his industry and some of the really neat things that are happening in the industry, new discoveries and so forth. So he's really an advocate and just a leader in this space that's, as I said, having ripple effects. It's benefiting multiple other providers, multiple other institutions and so forth. And so doing a lot of great good. So again, thanks for being here, Dr. Gapin. Really appreciate you and excited to get to know you a little bit.
You got it. Looking forward to it.
All right. So we were introduced at a conference we both attended where Dr. Gapin was actually one of the speakers. I was just an attendee, but we were introduced at one of Bill Walsh's Power Team International conferences. And you were one of the keynote speakers, Dr. Gapin. And I know you do that a lot, right? You speak.
I do.
And
do a lot of speaking. Yeah. my first TEDx talk was released last week as well. So yeah, I'm on the circuit.
That's fantastic, man. I know you're turning a lot of heads because what you're doing really works and it's really helping people. And a lot of it is fairly new, either maybe not new discoveries, but it's definitely being developed and understood more, peptides therapy and some of the other things that we'll talk about today. But so let's go back a little bit and let's talk about where you're from and kind of tell us about your upbringing. How did you become Dr. Tracy Gapin, world-renowned health specialist?
For sure. Yeah. So I grew up in the Dallas area. I was born in Jersey, but my family moved to Texas when I was 7. And so I really grew up in the Dallas area. And I knew when I was in 4th grade that I wanted to be a doctor. I knew at that point we were walking, there was a diagram of the heart on the ground. We had made out of tape, and we had to walk through the path that the blood takes as it goes through the 4 chambers of the heart. And I was fascinated. I was hooked at that point. I was really so interested in the human body, and my mom was a nurse, which probably had some influence there as well. But I knew at a very early age that I wanted to be a doctor. And so I went through my entire childhood really planning and preparing for what do I got to do to be a doctor? How do I do that? What grades do I need? What tests do I need to take, et cetera? And so decided to be a doctor, went to Texas A&M University for undergraduate, and then came back to Dallas, went to University of Texas Southwestern Medical School. And that's where you have to choose specialties. And right. I have a surgeon mentality. I knew I was going to be a surgeon of some kind, but I was fascinated with men's health. And I think that, I grew up, this is not a therapy session, but I grew up with a very troubled household. My parents divorced when I was very young. That's why we moved to Texas, actually. And I grew up without a father figure. I grew up without a real male role model. And surely that influenced me. And I believe that when I was choosing subspecialties, to some level, subconsciously, that influenced my decision to, how can I help men be the husbands, the fathers, the leaders that they're meant to be? And so I was very much drawn to men's health, and that got me into urology, which is a surgical subspecialty. And so I spent 6 years of training in general surgery and urology. And then in 2004, when I finished my training, I joined a large high volume urology practice here in Sarasota, Florida. Spent the next 17 years doing robotic surgery, treating prostate cancer, saving lives every day, and honestly neglecting my own health until about 10 years ago. I'm 50 now. I was about 40 when I hit a wall and woke up one day. I was, people say I'm suddenly 30 pounds overweight. Well, it didn't happen overnight, but it's from sheer neglect that got me to that point where I was overweight. I felt like crap, had no energy, couldn't focus. And I knew that I needed help. And so I went to a concierge doc here in Sarasota and was very discouraged when he really didn't have any answers for me. He, traditional disease model medicine, I learned from this experience, is set up to treat disease, illness, symptoms, find the diagnosis code. We call it an ICD-10 diagnosis code. And then we treat that with procedures, medications. His recommendation for me was eat more vegetables and exercise. And if I didn't lose weight and improve my cholesterol numbers, I might need a statin. And that was all I got from him. And I left his office that day, scared for my own health, but also confused about this whole world of healthcare that up until then I thought we knew it all. And that got me to start studying. And I went back to school. I literally, while still running a busy surgical practice, I went back to school and studied functional medicine, hormones, epigenetics, which is the science of how our lifestyle and environment affect genetic expression. Studied peptides, studied technology, and how do you integrate wearable technology to have a really data-driven perspective, and came through all this with a very different approach to men's health. And with this approach, I was able to really turn things around for myself. I was able to transform my health, but also my life, where I feel like I got myself back, and my wife got her husband back again. And it allowed me to be the best man that I could be. And I suddenly realized that I was onto something here, and I found my true purpose and passion in life finally. And I started sharing this with my urology patients, not to treat disease, not to treat urology problems, but to really help them have more energy and focus, lose weight, have better sex, and just simply live longer. And I've come to find that those are really the biggest 4 complaints that guys have. The biggest 4 pain points that men are dealing with in their daily life is, I want more energy and focus. I want to lose weight, burn that belly fat, have more muscle, look better, have more confidence, have better sex. And what do I got to do to live longer so I can enjoy this life as long as I can? And so my clients started having the same amazing results that I did. And that's when I knew that I really needed to change my entire career path. And so I did what no one does. No doctors do this. I left traditional medicine. I stepped away from traditional urology. I gave up all my Medicare and insurance contracts, and I launched the Gapin Institute for High Performance Health. And now all I get to do is work with high-performing individuals to help them be the best husbands, fathers, and leaders that they're meant to be. And it is a joy to get to come to work every day now, Patrick, which I could not say in my urology days.
It's interesting. I hear that from a lot of entrepreneurs. In fact, I was just last night with a friend of mine who's been an attorney in civil litigation for many, many years, was in a very large firm and then a smaller firm. And he just this week broke off and started his own practice. And he's one of these guys who's not, he's just a risk averse guy, right? He's not an entrepreneur at heart. But he felt the same way. He disagreed with some of the decisions his partners were making. He wanted to do business differently. He wanted to have more autonomy. And it's scary, right? It's a big leap for a lot of people. In fact, one of my my most popular episodes here on Finding Certainty was the one with Robert Mesh, an affiliate of mine, who tells his story from going from employed to self-employed, and it's a big leap for a lot of people. So I understand, but you get to a point where it's not that you want to do it. I think many times you have to do it, right? to be truly happy and to fulfill your life's destiny, you have to make that leap. Would you agree?
100%. And I'll tell you, a lot of that kept me back, that kept me from moving forward. There were many years that I wanted to make this leap, but didn't know how to do it. And in fact, more than anything, I have to admit, it's probably fear holding me back from learning how to do that. And when you jump off that figurative cliff like I did, you have no choice but to figure out how to make it work. And that's the real key is, and I take this approach when I work with my clients, is to give them the motivation and the confidence to make real life change. Even though there's fear holding you back from doing that, once you do, it's transformational.
I totally agree. I mean, that's the gauntlet, right? It's the catharsis that you go through as an entrepreneur, where it is frightening. It is, but you have to do it, and you have to figure it out. Once you make that decision, I think of the story of the military leader, the invader, who landed on the shore, and he told his men to burn the ships, right? Because there was no going back. They had to win in order to survive, and they did. And so I think it's a really important principle when it comes to business. Is so many entrepreneurs, and you have to do this sometimes, as you're starting out, you have limited funds, or you have limited resources, and you kind of have one foot in both camps, right? You're still working a full-time job, starting your part-time gig or whatever. But I think those who truly meet with success, like yourself, are those who cut the apron strings and dive in full-time.
There's an amazing book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. He has a number of great books out there, but he just released one yesterday, and I got an advanced copy of it that I've already read. And the book is called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And the whole point is to come at it from a perspective of abundance rather than a perspective of scarcity. And fear is what drives that. And when you come at a perspective of, how can I create wealth? How can I create a bigger life for myself and for others and have a bigger impact? It's often never that incremental change. How can I be just a little bit better? How can I be just 2X better? It's how can I be 10X better? And to do that, you have to come at it from a place of abundance.
Totally agree. 100%. So I want to go back to something you said about when you had your conversation with the doctor and you left, he told you to, eat more vegetables and exercise more. And if not, he was going to put you on a statin, and you came away concerned, right? Scared even. And you're a physician. I mean, health. And this was the advice you were getting and the advice you'd been taught in school. And you came away thinking there's got to be a better way, right? But even you, with all your experience and education and degrees, didn't have the answers yet. So is it any surprise that the regular patient, the masses out here, we don't know what to do?
Yeah, you're spot on there, Patrick. That's a key point, a key distinction to make, is that at the time I was a urologist. I was a air quote men's health expert, and I didn't have the answers either. And I had to come face to face with that realization, that very humbling reality that I didn't have the answer either. And how can I help the guys who are coming to see me as a men's health expert if I couldn't give them the answer to those 4 things they want? How do I have more energy, lose weight, have better sex, and live longer, if I couldn't answer those for myself? And that's what got me to, the solution is always, it comes from, the answers come from solving a problem. And so for this is, how do I solve this problem for myself, knowing that every other guy has the same issue as well? And now my TED Talk that just came out is all about the men's health crisis. And I believe it's because we're taking the wrong approach. This disease model, passive, reactive approach to health is failing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mentality, where we wait for there to be a problem, and by then it's typically too late. And so it's taking a very innovative, if you will, approach to it that I think is really the key to saving men.
So tell us some more about that when you talk about this health crisis. I think you're totally right. we have this mentality, especially in traditional medicine, to fix the problem
Yeah.
rather than create a cure, or
Yeah.
approach it from a preventative medicine standpoint.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, why is it? Is it and there's conspiracy theorists out there that it's driven by big pharmacy. They don't want you to get healthy. They don't want a cure for cancer because it's going to cost them money, right? I don't know if you agree with that, but why isn't it fixed? We're smart. I mean, we have brilliant people in America and around the world. We have,
Yeah.
it's obviously important to us, but why is it such a hurdle for
Hmm.
people, do you think?
Yeah, it's all based around big pharma, and I don't necessarily think that it's intentional to make us sick, but it's all ultimately driven by financial gains for pharma. But let's frame this: obesity is skyrocketing. Over three-quarters of men are either overweight or obese, and that continues to get worse every year. Testosterone levels are plummeting. Three massive longitudinal studies, 20-year plus longitudinal studies, one here in the US, the Male Massachusetts Aging Study, and one in Sweden and one in Finland, all show the same thing. And that is that free testosterone levels are down almost 50% over the last 20 years worldwide. Free testosterone levels are down 50% over the last 20 years. That means a 50-year-old guy today has a free testosterone level that's about half of what it was 20 years ago, Patrick. It's a
Wow.
massive decline. And that's not just about building muscle or having sex. It's about your energy, your cognitive function, your cardiovascular health is intimately tied to this, your metabolic health. Everything is in some form or fashion either related to it or caused by low testosterone numbers. We know that for the first time in decades, lifespan's actually decreasing. We're actually dying younger. And so what we're doing is not working. And so this is when I talk about the men's health crisis. This is what I mean. Like we need to wake up and change this, or else it's going to just keep getting worse.
So I'm glad you brought up hormones, because it's one question I've had. You
Yeah.
see all the ads, order this supplement, this will increase your hormones,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. And I think there's a lot of men out there that believe that. They say, I think there's something to this, even with my limited knowledge, but I don't know where to
Yeah.
start, right? Who to
Yeah.
trust? What's the
Sure.
right formulation? What's the right company to go with? I mean, and so it's a very big
Great
concern
question.
for men. I know
Yeah.
I feel that way.
I think a way to look at it is that you go to traditional disease model, reactive, passive medical doctors now. The way I see it, they're going to give a guy some testosterone and a blue pill. That's it. But it's important to recognize that we have 50 hormones in our body. Actually, testosterone gets all the attention, but make no mistake about it, we have 50. We also have to recognize how our gut health dramatically affects our energy and focus and ability to burn fat and build muscle and have better sex and live longer. We know that neurotransmitters, we know that sleep and stress directly affect all those things as well. We know that what you eat is critically important, but based on your genetics, what's right for you varies for each guy. And so I think the key is we need to go beyond testosterone, quit looking at just trying to raise testosterone and understand better why is it low and what are all the other factors that are associated with it. And that's where we take a different, I call it a very personalized, data-driven approach to men's health that no one out there is doing.
That's a really good point. I've taken your initial test, and we've done some work together.
Yes.
I'm exploring this process and understanding it better myself. And you hit on a really good point when you say it's data driven. You mentioned earlier how wearables, if you have the right wearable giving you the right data, it opens up a whole world for you of information and analysis and strategy and so forth. So we're up against a break here, but we're visiting with Dr. Tracy Gapin, MD, FACS, which I'm not sure what that stands for. You're gonna have to share that with us when we come back.
Yeah.
But I think this is a great conversation. There's a lot of listeners out there who have these same questions. I'm sure I've heard a lot of feedback. So thanks again for being here with us. We're gonna go to break, everybody. You're right back.
All clear. Great segment there. We'll be
Cool.
back in about 2 minutes.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm getting some background noise. I'll be right back. I'm gonna see
Okay.
where it's
Yeah, no
coming
problem.
from. Must be in my headphones. Anyway, so you live in Sarasota Springs now.
Yeah, Sarasota, Florida. That's right.
Sarasota.
Yeah.
You've been there for about 17, 18 years now?
I came here in '04, so 19 years now. Yeah, I spent 17 years in urology, 2 years now out of it. And yeah, great place to live.
Yeah. My wife and I have talked about relocating to Florida maybe someday. It just seems there's a lot of appeal from a retirement standpoint.
Yeah, great place to live. Yeah, tax benefit for sure. Yeah.
Everything.
All right, we've got about 20 seconds till we come back live.
Thank you, sir.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Lang. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back to Finding Certainty. We're visiting with Dr. Tracy Gapin. He's the founder of the Gapin Institute, which is would you call it a functional medicine practice, Dr. Gapin?
Yeah, great question. I actually don't. I don't call it functional medicine practice because in general, when you think about functional medicine, what they're really focused on, they talk about root cause and finding the source of problems, of disease. And that's the key is functional medicine in general is treating Lyme disease, mold, certain infections, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, treating problems. And Gapin Institute, we're focused on what I call high performance health. And high performance health is a field that's really emerging, and it's about optimization. It's about how do I get your mind and body to function at the highest level. Most guys who come see me, they don't have any specific problems, Patrick. They don't have candida. They don't have autoimmune disease. They don't have Lyme disease. They're like, how do I just make me better? How do I get better? How do I have more energy, more focus, have better body, better sex? Those are, in my opinion, a big part of life, a big part of enjoying the quality of your life. And that's what a lot of medical providers miss is the actual quality of life is just as important as the quantity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You talk about the big four. So what happens when you have a client, and I'm really your perfect client because I'm in my mid-50s. I'm a CEO, a founder. I'm busy. I travel. I speak.
Sure.
I'm going 100 miles an hour all the time.
Yeah.
And I have put on a belly that I never had. I mean, I weighed 180 for 20 years. And then one day I jumped to 200. And, and then I had surgery and didn't exercise for a couple years. Boom, jumped to even more. Right. And, and so it's interesting because I don't have any serious diseases that I know of. I don't have autoimmune issues or anything like that. My wife does. I mean, she needs help. But I'm curious if when somebody is dealing with, obesity or they're dealing with some of those other issues, do you have functional medicine specialists you work in partnership with to kind of get them to that point where they've analyzed what's going on? Maybe they prescribe some approaches or some methodologies, and then you take over, or is that just not your?
We do, yeah. So we utilize a lot of functional medicine practices, a lot of functional medicine testing we do here. But the key is that we integrate that with regenerative medicine, which is how do we use, regenerative approaches, anti-aging approaches? How do we integrate that with traditional allopathic approaches? How do we integrate that with genetics and with wearable technology? It's putting all those pieces together. And so I just don't call us a specifically functional practice because that's one facet of what we do.
Right.
But it involves so much more than that. And I think the key to recognize is that we all have blind spots in our health that are holding us back. I want to emphasize that
100%.
How you show up in life every day, the success you have in your business, the quality of your life outside work, your energy, your focus, your confidence are all directly tied to your health. And let me give you an example that I think drives this point home. There's a fitness trainer by the name of Bob Harper. You may or may not have heard of him. He's on the TV show The Biggest Loser. And this guy, he looks great. 52 years old, He looks amazing. We all aspire to look like him, best shape of his life. He had a heart attack, almost died. 52
Wow.
years old, had a widowmaker, which is a very bad blockage in his coronary vessels. He almost died at 52. So my point here is, if Bob Harper, as healthy and as in great shape as he is, can have a problem like that, imagine what you or I have. And so the point is to recognize that there's a lot going on under the hood that we have no idea is causing real problems until sometimes it's too late. And so this is, for me, the paradigm shift in men's health. Is to take a very proactive approach, to take a very data-driven approach, to employ, the three levers that I pull is: number one, advanced diagnostic testing; number two, personalized approach based on genetics and functional testing; and number three, precision lifestyle. All the amazing molecules that I can prescribe for you, Patrick. If I don't set you up for success to do the right things yourself at home, then you're never going to succeed either. And so to me, that's how we really shift the paradigm and make a real difference.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth, because I was just about to ask, how does it work? What's your process?
Yeah.
So do you mind breaking that down a little bit more, step by step? For anyone who's
absolutely.
listening, thinking, okay, this is sounding interesting. Where do I start? And what's step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
The process always starts with an initial deep dive assessment to really understand everything about you and your health, and not the traditional medical history. When you go to a medical doctor, what medications you're on, what allergy, what surgery have you had? That's all kind of foundational basic stuff. I'm talking about, how do you sleep? When do you go to bed? What's the environment around your sleep? Where's your phone when you sleep? What's the EMF like in your room? What's the comfort of the temperature in your room? What bedding are you using? What's the lighting like? What are you doing for those hours before you go to bed, for example? What data are you using? Are you tracking around sleep, for example? Nutrition. What are you eating? When are you eating? How often are you eating? What's the macro ratios, micronutrients? What foods you like to eat? What foods you hate to eat? Those sorts of things matter. Are you fasting at all? And what's the pattern around that? Stress. Most of us overlook stress, but what's the typical day like for you? How do you mitigate stress? How do you balance stress in your life with your family? How do you prioritize things in your life? How do you schedule things? Like for me, Patrick, I know that I train better, exercise better at lunchtime. And so I have in my day typically 2 hours blocked out in the middle of the day where no one can touch my calendar because I'm at the gym. And I would rather wake up at 6 a.m. and work, and then work out, train it, because I know my body does better at that time. But it's all about, what are the big rocks in your life, and creating that work-life balance. Right. All these details matter, Patrick. And then I can start to really understand, what do we need to test? What do we need to look at? And then we do comprehensive advanced diagnostic testing. A lot of blood work that most people have never heard of before. I have primary care doctors in town who call me. Yeah, hey, I saw you order these tests. What does that test even mean? Why'd you order that? What are you doing with it? How do you interpret that? What does it mean? A lot of lab testing that most disease model doctors don't ever get, because insurance won't cover it, because they don't see the utility for it, for example. A lot of testing looking at like the gut, looking at stress, cortisol, looking at food sensitivities, looking at neurotransmitters, looking at all these different markers that really matter, Patrick. We do a lot of testing. We can even measure your biologic age. I can measure how fast or slow your body is aging. We do a deep dive into body composition, looking at lean muscle mass and visceral fat and body fat. And we put all this together, we're able to now assimilate everything to understand where you are now, where you want to be, what does the data show for us right now, and how do we implement all the tools that we have to help you get there. And that's typically never just one thing. It's never just testosterone. It's never any magic pill that's going to magically boost your testosterone. It's addressing hormones. It's addressing nutrition. It's addressing gut health. It's addressing stress and the effects it's having on your body. It's looking at cardiovascular health. It's looking at all the lifestyle aspects that are so important as well. And so it's putting all these pieces together, Patrick, that no one out there is doing, but it all matters and it's all connected. And this is the integrated systems model that I really emphasize is so important. And that's how we get the results that we do.
Well, there's a reason you were asked to speak on TEDx. You've been in Entrepreneur Magazine. You were on Ted Asprey's biohacking conference, or Dave Asprey's biohacking conference. That's a prestigious platform for you to be invited and speak to their audience. And it says volume.
And this one right here. And this one right here. Right.
Well, we appreciate you being here.
For sure.
There are so many questions going through my mind, and I'm sure the audience is asking the same. So I always try to put myself in my audience's seat and think, what are they wondering about? And as you talk about being on TEDx, that's a big deal. You don't just get invited on TEDx
Yeah.
if you're making a small difference. That's
Right.
usually because you're impacting in a big way. Tell us a little bit about the experience. How did it go? How did you feel?
I appreciate it.
Happened
Yeah.
about a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah. Well, the first question is, why did I do a TEDx talk? And for me, it's all about creating a movement around addressing the mental health crisis, and how do we take a very different proactive approach. And for me, it was a 2-year process of developing my talk, applying to speak, and then getting the opportunity to speak. I spoke in January this year at West Monroe, Louisiana, which I'd never heard of before, but that's fine. I found out that it's an amazing TEDx venue. First of all, it was incredible to be surrounded by a bunch of other awesome speakers as well. There were 3 of us speaking on health, and the other 7 spoke on other amazing topics. So that was great to create some new friendships and see some colleagues there as well. But for me now, it's about legacy. It's about impact. It's about, how do I make a difference? I turned 50 last year, and it's about, how do I be the best dad that I could be? How do I be the best husband? How do I show up as the best man that I could be? But it's about, how do I leave an impact on this world? And I've found very clearly that it's helping transform men's health. And that's my passion. That's my mission. And that's what the TEDx talk was really about. It's just to bring about awareness. It's simply about that.
Well, as I said earlier, it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on our show, because not only are you an expert at what you do, and you're blessing lives all over the country, even around the world, but you're really good at being an advocate for this space. I mean, TEDx is one good example of that. Your books as well. Maybe tell us a little bit about Male 2.0 and your other book.
Thanks.
Codes of Longevity, right? Is that the name?
Yeah, thank you.
Title?
Yeah, so Male 2.0 was a passion project for me as I was stepping away from traditional medicine. It was important that I made it clear why. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I'm not just deciding I want to do functional medicine instead. It's not that at all. It's about having an impact and changing lives. And to me, Mel 2.0 is my view of really shifting our focus. Mel 1.0, I call it, is a very reactive, passive approach. It's the one size fits all approach to, well, I read on Twitter this supplement's supposed to work, and I read on Twitter this diet's the right thing you're supposed to be doing, and this guy says you got to be doing this. And so, right. I call it one size.
The Reddit approach, right?
That's right. Yeah, Reddit, Twitter. And I call it the one size fails all approach, because we're all uniquely different, and our genetics and our environment all directly affect how we're going to respond. And you need to take a very personalized perspective when you make those decisions. And so
I agree.
It's about changing that. It's being more proactive. It's not waiting for a disease to set in. It's about, how do I incorporate data and drive everything. We have KPIs in our business, right? We make decisions on metrics, and we track those outcomes, and we see if what we're doing is working or not. And if it works, fantastic. How do we make it better? If it didn't work, why? And what do we need to pivot? Why doesn't anyone do that with their health? Why don't we, all we do is look at a scale? Well, that doesn't tell you anything, first of all. And so it's using real metrics that matter to drive decisions, and then to continually track them and see if we're getting the results we're looking for.
Well, I've been a sales trainer for most of my career. I've been in sales for 30, 35 years now. Much of that training salespeople, working with sales teams. I was a national sales trainer, traveling all over the country, teaching offices how to do what we had done in our office in Portland, Oregon. And I've said many, many times, you cannot improve what you don't measure. It applies in sales, it applies in advertising, marketing, it applies in marriage, right? A lot of different areas. But so I'm really glad you brought this up, because talking about wearables, talking about the data, talking about analysis and all the different tests you do and so forth. Yeah. It's so important, in my opinion, because otherwise you're just shooting in the dark, right? It's a shotgun approach.
That's right.
Physicians, they say, you come in when once you're having a problem and you're having these symptoms and they're trying to analyze what's gone wrong. You're taking this proactive approach, and it's not even based on your expertise or based on your experience, your education. You're not just approaching it from this is what usually happens. You're personalizing it with the testing, the genetic testing, and so forth and so on. So it is a very customized program and plan of action, right?
That's right.
Say, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. And let me drive it home with a real world example. Sleep is so incredibly important when it comes to metabolism, energy, hormones, inflammation, cardiovascular health. Almost everything can be tied in some sense to the quality of your sleep. I'll see men who will tell me either number one, I sleep great, I have no problems whatsoever, which is typically not the case, or number two, I stay up too late because I'm working. I don't go to bed till 1 o'clock and I'll be up by 4. And so it's self-inflicted damage. Or number three, I go to bed at 10, 11, I wake up at 2 and I can't fall back asleep again. And as hard as I try, my mind's racing and so on. And so when we look at sleep, we can actually measure the quality of sleep with trackers. And Aura Ring is a great way to track sleep, but you can also track it with even an Apple Watch. The new Apple Watches have incredible algorithm to track sleep stages. A Garmin can track sleep stages. You want to use a device to track the actual quality of sleep by looking at the various stages of sleep. So what I mean by that is we care about deep sleep, which is there's REM and there's non-REM sleep. Non-REM is broken down into stage 1 and 2, which are light sleep stages of sleep, and then stage 3 and 4 is considered deep sleep. That's really the restorative aspect of sleep, is that deep sleep. And typically that happens in the first half of the night, that deep sleep. And then the second half of the night is more REM sleep. The light sleep, the stage 1 and 2, tends to not be nearly as productive and provide as much benefit as REM and deep sleep. Well, there's certain metrics that we look at when it comes to deep sleep and REM sleep to see if you're getting good quality sleep. When you sleep 7 hours, but you don't get that deep sleep and the REM sleep, what does it do to you? It raises cortisol, your stress hormone. Which crushes hormones. It makes you store fat. It turns off neurotransmitter function. It alters your mood, alters your focus, your concentration, your mental acuity. It inhibits muscle production, hard time building muscle, hard time burning fat. It changes everything. And so that's just one example of how something that as seemingly inconsequential as sleep have a dramatic effect on your whole system. And we can use data to track and understand if what you're doing is working or not.
You know, I learned from a friend of mine who's an expert in energy. I should actually get you two together. You would love it. He's a high performance coach focused in mostly professional sports, but so I think a lot of his clients could be clients for you and vice versa.
Nice, yeah.
But he taught me something really interesting about sleep. I'm going to share it as soon as we come back from our break. We're visiting with Dr. Tracy Gapin, MD, of the Gapin Institute. Really enjoying this conversation, Tracy. We will be right back if you're listening.
All clear. Great segment. We're going to be back in about 2 minutes.
Thanks, Andrew. If you're listening, if you're not listening, and you just missed everything we said, and it's not going to benefit you.
Right? I love it. So now how often are you recording this? Is it once a week for you?
Yeah, every Friday morning.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah, I've had some fantastic guests.
Sure.
Probably one of my favorite guests was a guy named Win Claybaugh. He's the founder and the dean of Paul Mitchell, the schools.
Okay.
And he tells his story of how they've built their company from 0 up to over 100 different schools and thousands of employees. And it was a really fun interview.
Very cool.
If you're ever looking for something good to listen to while you're working,
I'll have to listen to that. Yeah,
it's great. Probably my favorite, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Good entrepreneur story of overcoming hurdles and so forth. But
how do you drive traffic to your show?
You know, Voice America does a really good job of promoting what we do. We do our own social media a little bit. It's one area where I'm weak, and it's something that we're working on. I think we could do better. Most of it's through our affiliate network. I've got over 100 affiliates across the country that work for us. And
Okay.
every time we speak, every time, through our website, just everywhere we go, we talk about it. But I think it is something we could do better. Normally, I get you your episode description promo card prior to the show, so we can put it out on social media. You can invite
All right. We've got about 10 seconds.
We came down to the wire today, but that's okay.
No worry. I'm sorry I got so late getting it to you.
No, but nah, that's all right.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Lang. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
So prior to the break, we were visiting with Dr. Tracy Gapin here, and we were talking about sleep. That's a really important topic to me. I love to sleep. Fortunately, I don't get enough sleep, as many of us, as you were describing the different kinds of men. I fall into that second category. I stay up too late and then have to get up early. But I have a friend I was telling you who's an expert in energy. He was a professional hockey player, then a coach, and now he's a really consultant and a coach for professional sports. But he taught me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but he taught me that we sleep in, you're talking about REM sleep, but he says we sleep in 90-minute increments, and that the REM portion of that, steps 3 and 4 are happening over and over and over within these 90-minute blocks. And ever since then, I've tried to keep that in mind. I mean, he says it's better to sleep for 7.5 hours than even 8. You're going to feel more refreshed because you hit that 90-minute block. Is that a true statement? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So think about it like this. It's a cycle where you start, and you can think of the ocean as a way to visualize this for those of you who are listening, not watching. But you can imagine that you're at the surface of the ocean when you first go to sleep. You're awake. And then you dip just below the surface, and that's REM sleep. Okay, REM sleep is where you're still arousable to sound. If dogs barking, wife's making noise, or snore, your partner's snoring, you can hear them, and it'll wake you up. REM sleep is actually where you're having consolidation of memory, and some of the cognitive recovery aspects of sleep are really important during REM sleep. Then you dip deeper, and you go into non-REM sleep, which is composed of 4 stages. Stage 1 and 2 is light sleep. And then you go down to the deepest in the ocean, stage 3 and 4. And then you come back up. Stage 3, stage 2, stage 1, and then back up to REM. And then you actually may have a little micro awakening there for like 30 seconds, a minute. You may actually be barely even, without even realizing it, you actually have a micro awakening. And then you follow that same pattern again. And you're exactly right. That's about a 90-minute pattern that I just went through. Is about 90 minutes for that whole thing to occur, give or take. And so in general, you want, as many as 4 of those cycles throughout the night. Those first 2 cycles are when almost all of the deep sleep occurs. So that's where you get to the deepest part of the ocean, the first and second cycle of the night. And that's where you want to get up to preferably an hour or 60 minutes of deep sleep each night. It's going to happen in those first 2 cycles. The REM sleep predominantly happens in cycle 3 and 4. And so a lot of times the cognitive benefits of sleep, as I mentioned, happen in REM. And if you're not getting those final 2 cycles of sleep, that's the key where you start to lose the beneficial aspects of sleep. Those guys who wake up in the middle of the night, that's typically after cycle 2, they're in that REM where they're arousable and something wakes them up. They're in a high cortisol state. They're in a stress state in general, to where at that micro awakening, they actually become fully awake, and now they can't fall back asleep because their mind is perseverating. They can't stop. Very, very common with chronic stress. That's associated with some liver detoxification issues as well. But exactly right. 90-minute cycles. You want to try to get as many as 4 cycles a night if you can, and you want an hour of deep sleep, and you want 2 hours, 120 minutes of REM sleep.
So how do you do it? How do you ensure that's happening? Do you have any hacks or any tips?
Yeah, a lot of lifestyle stuff. So We look at what's called sleep hygiene. What are you doing in the evening before you go to bed? And I want to be clear, there's lifestyle stuff that we can do, and then there's molecules, things that we can prescribe. So on the lifestyle part of it, first of all, I always recommend that you limit food intake for 4 hours before you go to bed. Now that last meal, your dinner meal, is important for some people who are particularly sensitive to glutamate, which is found in like grains, found in high protein meals. It's a very excitatory neurotransmitter. And for some people, they don't convert that to GABA, which is a very calming or soothing or inhibitory neurotransmitter. And so for some people, that last meal of the day can have an impact as well. So sometimes what you eat in dinner can affect it. But in general, 4 hours before bed, I look at, what are the things that you can do to kind of calm the mind? And that starts with turning off blue light. And so, iPod or iPads, your phone, laptop, for example, 3 or 4 hours before bed, you need to stop using them. If you do need to use them sparingly, be using blue light blockers. Those blue light blocking glasses are not 100%. So you can't just keep working and wearing those and think that you're fine. So you still need to limit it. I'll emphasize early in the day when you first wake up, getting sunlight directly on your skin has a direct effect on your nighttime behavior as well. So I'd really emphasize that. I know we're focusing on nighttime routine, but early morning routine is really important to get sunlight as well. For the last 2 hours before you go to bed, I like to say that there are 5 things that you can do, and 5 things only. You can read, you can meditate, you can journal. These are all ways at calming the mind. You can use the sauna. Sauna is amazing for turning your body off. Okay, has a very calming effect. Or number 5, you can have sex, which is a great way to turn off the mind and get you to sleep as well.
Which most guys won't complain about, right?
That's right. That's right. So 5 things you can do for that last hour or 2 before you go to bed. I would highly recommend you don't do them all at the same time. That'd be really awkward. But any of those 5 things would be a great thing to help kind of get the mind into the right framework. When you do go to bed, it has to be a completely pitch black, dark room. Any light at all can stimulate your brain and affect melatonin function and production. As cold as your body can tolerate, as cold as you're willing to have your room, the better. Comfy bedding, of course. Keep your laptop or your phone or any other electronic device off of your nightstand, away from your head as far away as you can, because they emit EMF or electromagnetic frequency, which definitely disrupts those cycles of sleep that we talked about in your brain. Those are the key things to focus on when it comes to sleep hygiene.
How far away from your head should the phone be minimum?
I'd say at least 12 feet. So across the room or in your closet or somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay.
Most importantly also is your brain responds to a very consistent sleep schedule. So if there's any one thing to take away from all this, it's to go to bed the exact same time every night and wake up at the exact same time every morning.
Interesting.
Weekdays, weekends.
Really?
7 days a week. Your brain needs that. Circadian rhythm is so important when it comes to normal sleep cycles, that you want to set a time, 10:30, 11, 10, whatever that time may be. And that's your time. And I have an alarm on my phone. It tells me it's time. I'm done. No matter what we're doing, watching a show, I'm reading, I'm doing whatever else. It's time. Yeah.
What if you watch TV in the evening? Is that
it's okay. It's okay. It does emit some blue light, not nearly as bad as electronic devices like tablets and laptops. And so the blue light blocking glasses, I think, are still beneficial for that. But I do think for that last hour, though, I would recommend turning the TV off and doing something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before we run out of time here, those were great tips, Dr. Gapin. I really appreciate that.
You bet.
I mean, I'm going to go back and listen to this and take notes, because it's definitely an area I struggle in. I stay up too late. I have to get up early. It changes every day. One night it's 11 o'clock, next night it's 2 a.m. And it's one question I have. And does it make a difference if you go to bed at midnight to say 7:30 versus 10 to 5:30?
Great question. We actually have genetics related to chronotype. Chronotype meaning, does your body respond better? Night owl or early bird. We actually have genetics around that dictate how well your body responds. Most people kind of already have a feel for that of what you respond best to. But whatever that is, you need to stick to it. You need to be really, really consistent with that. And so for me, it's 10:30 and 6 every day, 10:36, 10:36. And I know that's my schedule. And, it's so easy to keep going at 10:30. Oh, I got to get something, try to get something else done and squeeze more out of the day. The the next day, you're going to be so much more productive when you have that good quality sleep. Excuse me.
I totally agree. My wife would be happier too if I went to bed earlier, for sure. So before we run out of time, though, I want to talk about peptides, because I know this is a big hot button for you. Do you mind explaining what they are and why they're so important?
Sure. Yeah, peptides are amazing. Peptides are not pharmaceuticals, they're not drugs. They are simply chains of amino acids. They are a very precise, specific sequence of amino acids that serve a very specific, very precise function. Now, peptides are great in that they are signaling molecules that are derived from our own bodies. So they're signals that our body is already used to. So, for example, insulin is a peptide. Growth hormone is a peptide. The thymus gland, which is a gland in our neck that shrinks and shrivels up when we're young, it produces very important immune cells for our body. There are important peptides that come from that. So we can isolate peptides from the stomach. There are amazing peptides. BPC 157 is a peptide that's originated from enzymes in the stomach that is great for reducing inflammation. There are peptides that can help with cognitive focus and memory, concentration, anxiety, depression. There are peptides for musculoskeletal repair. So I had elbow tendonitis, amazing peptides for reducing systemic or joint inflammation or soft tissue repair. Peptides for immune function, peptides for burning fat, building muscle, peptide for enhancing sexual arousal and performance. Almost any you can imagine, there are amazing peptides that help you achieve that. And what's nice about them is they're not pharmaceuticals, they're not drugs, and they have very precise function. And so you can really tailor them toward the individual. And typically there are negligible side effects because they're coming from the body already. They're signals that our body is already accustomed to. I'll emphasize that these are, FDA hates them because they haven't gone through a 10-year, research study by Big Pharma, and they can't because they're by definition nothing more than sequences of amino acids. They're generic in the sense that you can't patent it, and so there's no money there for Big Pharma to spend 10 years studying a peptide. But there's a ton of basic science around the underlying physiology and mechanism of action and how each of these work. So I don't want to come across that they're experimental at all. They're well studied. They're proven. I'll emphasize that it's important that you're careful with your source. However, there are a lot of amazing compounding pharmacies from which I'll prescribe, and they have certificates of authenticity. Purity is something they take very seriously. There are a lot of companies that are direct to consumer that you really don't necessarily know fully what you're getting. And so I'll just emphasize for the listener to be careful to think that that's something you can go out and buy yourself and get the same results. There was a study that came out last year that they looked at one of these direct to consumer companies and there was nothing in their peptides. It was saline. And so you just got to be careful. Yeah.
Well, we were coming down to the wire. We've got about 2 minutes left. If you had 2 tips to give everybody in 60 seconds, what would they be?
Yeah, number one, I would say take charge of your health. I talk about living with intention, and that is to don't end up like I did, sitting on that cold exam table. I like to say, neglecting your health until it's too late. Take action and be proactive about your health, and insist upon not waiting until there's a problem. And not waiting until it's too late. Number 2 is don't fall for the one size fits all, or what I call one size fails all model that's out there. That I heard from my buddy, or read somewhere that's great, so I'm going to take this supplement. And it's important that you really understand what's right for you, and not fall for that.
Wow, this has been a wealth of information, and I know it's just the tip of the iceberg of what your clients gain from you, even with just the initial testing, initial analysis, and then there's so many more options. Just in closing, we've been visiting with Dr. Tracy Gapin, MD, founder of the Gapin Institute. If you'd like to learn more, how do listeners get a hold of you, Dr. Gapin?
Thanks so much. You can check out our website, gapininstitute.com. And if you want to text the word health to 26786, a couple nice gifts we'll send your way.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you for listening on Finding Certainty today. Always a pleasure having you with us. There is certainty out there for you. You can find it. We can help. We wish the very best. Have a great weekend, everybody. And we'll see you next week. Take care. Thanks, Dr. Gapin.
Thank you, Patrick.
All clear. Great job today, everyone.
Cool.
Thank you, Andrew.
Awesome. Take care, Patrick. We'll see you next week.
Appreciate it. So we're still recording. Is there anything we missed you'd like to throw in, or we didn't really get to talk about codes of longevity? And I'd love to hear.
Oh yeah,
just a minute about your other book.
That was I was a co-author of that book. That was basically a conglomeration of, there were 20 experts in various fields. There was someone in nature, someone in psychological stuff, someone more in the neuro field. And so we had various experts in the areas of longevity talking about what is their secret, what's their code to longevity. And so that was a fun book that was really a collaboration among a bunch of authors. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in a couple of those type of compilations this last year. One was called Mission Matters. Focused on CEOs whose companies are making a difference. And I was asked to be a part of that. I actually wrote the introduction to the book and got to be on the cover with the co-author. Oh,
very cool. Nice. That's awesome.
We just did another book where I'm also a co-author, but it was on business culture.
Okay.
And that one's an international bestseller. We've gotten some really good response on it. So
nice.
We're working on a third book where I'm co-authoring with a friend, but writing the entire book, not just a chapter, but it's going to be focused on certainty and how to find certainty in an uncertain world.
I love that. I love your message, and it's fantastic. Yeah, man.
Goes right in line with what you said about the abundance mindset, right?
That's right. Yeah.
There to be had. I always end my show with certainty is out there and you can find it. We can help. And
I love it.
So much of it is the glass half full, half empty. It's perspective. It's seeking. It's taking the steps and jumping through the hoops to proactively go after it. And that's what your entire business model is directly in line with that. So
we're on the same page for sure. Yeah.
It's been fun. Appreciate you being on the call, man.
Absolutely.
You're probably going to head to the gym here pretty soon, right?
I am. I'm late. I told him today I was going to be a little late because of this, but I'm happy to do this, man. This is fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today, and a lot of fun.
You bet. I'll get you the link to the promo card and put it out there.
Perfect. Be happy to share and help support you as well. Yeah.
I really appreciate it. It's been a great interview. I think the listeners will really enjoy it. So
awesome.
Thanks so much, Tracy.
Take care. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.